Welcome to Leadership Beyond the Title podcast, where we redefine what it really means to lead. I'm your host, TaSheena Braxton, executive leadership and team coach, systems thinker, and champion for equity-driven leadership. This isn't your typical leadership podcast. Here, we go beyond job titles and performance metrics to explore how leadership shows up in the everyday through relationships, values, decision-making, and the way we build systems that work for everyone. You'll hear real stories, unfiltered truths, and powerful insights that challenge the status quo. Because the world doesn't need more traditional leaders, it needs braver ones. So, let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. I am so excited to have you all back here with me. You could be anywhere, but you are here listening to me, and for that, I thank you. Today is such a special episode because it is something that I've been thinking about for a week or so now after having a coaching conversation with a client who is kind of navigating this period where she wants people to trust her. She also wants her team to trust her. She wants to trust her team and others. And there's just a lot of things that are blocking her and getting in the way. And when we were having the conversation about trust and when we're talking about what it looks like with trust, what she kept telling me was like, well, I tell them that they can trust me, or I try to let them know that it's all good to trust me. And, sometimes we're in meetings and I'll let them know like, hey, this is what is going on with me. And so just tell me if I'm messing up. Just tell me if something is wrong. And while that's great that she's talking and she's telling them, the problem is that people just don't take what you say. They actually have to see what your actions are going to be. And so in today's episode, I really want to talk about what is trust and how to foster this trust on your team, and what are some red flags or things to look out for, because it's not just about what you say, it's actually about what you do. So let's dive in. So let's just take a look at why there is such a problem with trust and what happens in working environments where trust seems pretty empty. It feels like it's not real, and it feels like people are just kind of saying things, but they don't mean what they say. The first thing is that we all work in environments or have worked in environments that are shaped with systems that are all about racial bias, gender bias, visibility gaps, and other different biases and prejudices that actually make speaking up to be risky, especially if you're a woman of color, if you're from a marginalized identity, if you're LGBTQ+. These different cultural backgrounds and different communities that we all come from, especially a lot of the listeners that are listening to this podcast, it really makes it hard to speak up. And when we speak up, sometimes there's the questioning of like, did I say it right? Am I going to be seen as aggressive? Or there's questions of like, is this person going to take it wrong? Are they going to, go tell somebody what we talked about? Are they going to do all these things? And it quickly erodes trust. It quickly makes trust not even feel like you listen to me, like you feel like you care about me, that I'm in a place where I can feel seen and heard and supported. Like it doesn't even feel that way because of these environments that are shaped by oppression. It's shaped by patriarchal, capitalistic environments where there's always competition and somebody always has to win. And so because of that, if you give me feedback, if you give me an opinion, if you tell me something that I could be doing better, people in those environments who haven't done the work will take it as a critique. They will take it as blame. They will take it as you were trying to tell me that I don't know how to do my job. And in those environments, it gets really hard for employees to come to their leaders or even to be on a team where they know someone may be talking about them, someone may be, judging them, someone may be secretly throwing them under the bus, that they don't feel comfortable or safe enough to be who they are and to show up authentically into the workplace. And when these environments are happening, what I notice happens with the leaders or with the organization, that like there's this culture shift, and the culture shifts quickly goes into, let's have an open door policy. Let's have a policy where everybody can come and talk to any of the leaders. We are available. We have specific office hours. We're going to say that you could come and you can talk to me, right? And there's some good positive intentions behind that, because you really want to find out what's going on. You want people to come talk to you because you want to figure out what's the solution for it. However, it's not possible to do that when you've already had an environment where there is a lot of consequences or reactions that are very defensive that happen just because you spoke up. And so instead of us trying to figure out, let's just have open door policy, which feels like a lot of talk, a lot of emptiness, we need to be talking about what is it that we need to do differently in order to foster that trust, to make people feel like we are trustworthy and make people feel like we actually care about them as a human and we want them to be there in this environment, in this working environment. We want them to be part of our team. We care about their career growth and the trajectory that they're going. We care about what they need to learn. We're not just talking about it. We're actually being about it. And so I really looked at some of my experience as an administrative assistant, where I remember my boss kind of coming to me and telling me like, okay, I need you to like share an email to the entire team and let them know that these are my office hours and I have an open door policy. They can come talk to me for ABC. And I was like, okay, sure, bet, I'm going to do it. And I did that. And, you know, some people took advantage of it. Some people didn't. Mostly people didn't. And what I found out is when I transitioned from an administrative assistant into an executive leadership and team coach, what started happening is I was able to have more of a bird's eye view into what was happening in the background and why these policies were put into place, or these systems, so-called systems, were put into place for people to feel comfortable having, or for the leaders to say, I have an open door policy and I want you to be able to come and talk to me. And what I noticed in this was that they were creating these policies without realizing the level of power they had over other people, or this level of like hierarchy that was in the room, just because they were higher up on the org chart. And they didn't realize that they had to actually prove themselves, and they had to show, the Bible says show and approved, and they had to do this first before saying and expecting people to walk through the door in a so-called open door policy. And so I started to like have team sessions where I wanted to curate an environment where we start the work, not that we were going to solve all the problems, the trust problems, things like that, but let's start the work with some like really specific things that are going to just essentially help the team to come together in a way that feels safe, welcoming, and a place that they can belong. And so these are the 6 points that kind of led me to, if you want to, or answers the question of, if you want to really have a team that trusts you, that it feels safe to walk through your open door, that feels comfortable giving you feedback, sharing ideas, being creative and innovative on the team, these are the 6 things that you should be thinking about as you are working with your team. The first thing you should be thinking about is saying you can trust me is not enough. We just need to acknowledge that. When I was having a coaching conversation with a leader, she kept saying, I tell my team that they can trust me. I really do. I really tell them that it's okay to talk to me. There won't be any repercussions. And yeah, she really believed that, right? In her mind, she was like, yeah, this is exactly what I want my team to feel like when they're coming to me. However, her actions were defensiveness when they would approach her. They would feel like She's not actually taking their ideas into account. It has to be her way and no way. There wasn't a lot of like curiosity and, like advice seeking where I am going to implement a part of your idea, or if not the full idea. There wasn't a lot of that, right? And so what you need to know is that trust is built from the lived experience. It's not from an announcement. It's not from a public service announcement. It's not from a memo. Like, you really have to create a lived experience where your employee or someone else on the team can say, oh, okay, I see that this leader does this every single time. And like, they don't waver from the fact that they really care about what I say. And they really want me to make the decision. Like, there really isn't going to be a repercussion for me saying or doing specific things. Like, I can make a mistake in the spirit of experimentation. I can have input into a decision in the spirit of, I may or may not take your advice, but I do want to implement something. Or better yet, you make the decision and we'll work through the decision. We'll shift, we'll be flexible if the decision seems to be going the wrong way. And so there is this like disconnect between what the leader perceives, like they're like, I'm approachable, like you could come to me, versus like a perception of the team or the people that they work with. They're like, yeah, but I don't know how you're going to act. So we need to realize this first point of, you can't just say you can trust me. You can't just tell your leaders that, the employees that you work with or anyone else, you can't just tell them that and think that's enough. So we first need to start there. Like, we need to acknowledge it and we need to say, this is what it is. The second thing is, your reaction is going to set the tone. So if you are one of those people who are defensive, as I said before, or you shut down, or you stop going to them for, seeking advice or getting their input, that's going to set the tone for how your people feel about you. Now, you can't control how somebody reacts to what you say, because words are words, right? And people make meaning of the words that they hear. That's a fact. But as leaders, we still have to recognize that sometimes there are going to be moments where we don't say it the right way. We offend without wanting to offend. But are we willing to repair? Are we willing to go back and say, you know what, I apologize. That's not what my intention was, and I want to repair this relationship with you, right? And so how you respond in the moments, especially to the mistakes, to the bad news, or even to things that you disagree with, it's going to either reinforce or it's going to destroy the trust that you have. And so, like I say, like with Brene Brown, she has with this analogy about the trust jar, and she says, your trust is your bank account. And the more marbles are in this jar, the more marbles that you put in, the more you are depositing trust. The more that you take away, you're withdrawing trust. And so you have to see, like, how am I reinforcing, or how am I eroding trust by just looking at like this trust jar? Am I putting things in, or am I constantly taking things out? And so that means that you will have to probably set up some level of agreements or ways of working or communicating with each other so that you find those practical ways to receive information without triggering defensiveness or fear. How do you give information without triggering defensiveness or fear? And so that could be as simple as, like, when you want to give me feedback, like, pull me to the side. Or when you give me feedback, do it 24 hours in advance. Or if there is a meeting, let me know what the agenda is. Let me know if, you need me to do something, what's the context behind it? Like, you really want to find ways that you're not triggering somebody's defensiveness or fear or even trauma, I would say, because a lot of us have a lot of trauma that we're walking around day in and day out. And so just being mindful that somebody may be dealing with something that they don't necessarily want to deal with, or they don't know that they're dealing with all the time, and it can trigger something inside of them. And so your reaction is really going to set the tone for whether or not someone believes that they can trust you. Okay, so that's the second thing. And then the third thing is, y'all, make the implicit explicit. We are walking around these organizations and your teams with too many unspoken expectations. Like, things are happening under the surface. Things are happening, like these rules that, it's like, okay, and this, I remember organization was like, at every in this organization, we really don't show up to meetings on time. We're always 5 minutes late. Always. And it was like an unspoken rule. Or another unspoken rule was like, we always tell people when we'll tell our manager if we're interviewing for another job. We just have to, right? Whereas in other organizations, like, no, don't tell your manager until you get offered the job, right? But what are these unspoken rules that actually need to be made explicit so no one feels like you're hiding things from them, so people feel that you're being transparent, and you just want to avoid any misunderstandings that can happen. And so you're looking at, like, what are those things? A lot of times leaders are being they're taking on teams that they inherit. So there's already a staff. They're not building a whole new staff. There's already a staff there. There's already people that clearly are just like, have been part of the team for ages, right? And they come with like these cultural norms and ways that they work, and we just take it on and we say, okay, this is how we take it on, instead of stopping and say, hey, okay, we're essentially a new team because I'm a new face on the team. So let's recreate how we want to work together. Let's talk about that. Let's be explicit with how we want our communication to be. How do we want to be with decision making? How do we want to be with meeting hygiene? What do we want to do that's going to help us be effective as the team that is now versus the team that was? Because once you take somebody out of the team or you insert somebody into the team, it's a new team. And so we can't go off of what we used to do. We have to do something different. When the movie or video kind of industry was changing, y'all remember Blockbuster. If you're old enough, I'm telling my age. Y'all remember Blockbuster. And then when Netflix came onto the scene. And what Blockbuster didn't do was like flex or kind of notice what their environment was around them and know that things were changing, right? And sometimes we're like the Blockbuster. We're trying to stand strong and stay embedded in the way things were. And it doesn't make it better for us at all. We continue to like struggle. The trust isn't there. The work is slowing down. Things are breaking down. We're having to redo and backtrack and all the things because we're not changing. And so how can we be clear and explicit when we're becoming the Netflix of our team instead of just staying in our Blockbuster era? Okay. The third thing is the understanding of cultural and power dynamics is super important. This is really how you're going to know whether or not your tone is appropriate for the person that you're talking to, really. When you understand how your background, how your identity, or how any of your past experience shape who you are as a leader, and it shapes whether or not you feel comfortable speaking up or not, this is going to shape how that interaction is with that individual. Now, I'm going to say something, and I apologize to anybody who may be offended. I am not trying to offend anyone, but I'm going off of maybe some information that I've heard before. And some information that I've heard before is that for most Asian, meaning Chinese Asian cultural backgrounds, there is something about maybe looking directly in someone who you feel is in a hierarchical or above you, looking them directly in their eyes. I've heard, I'm not sure if this is true, y'all can correct me, maybe it's hit or miss, but what I've heard is looking somebody straight in the eye is a sign of disrespect. And so if that's my culture, where if I look at you as the authoritarian figure and I don't look you in the eyes and it's a sign of respect, when I insert myself into America, I, as the leader, as the American, have to realize that that culture is shaped differently. And just because I don't look you in the eye doesn't mean that I don't respect you and that I don't see you as someone who demands or should be afforded a level of authority, right? Actually, it means that I do respect you genuinely and I don't look you dead in your eyes, right? And so we have to know what those cultural background and identity things are that shapes us into the leader who we are. And that means that you're going to have to figure out how to navigate hierarchy. How are you going to become a trauma informed leader? I'm not saying you have to go get trauma trained, but how do you make an environment where trauma, when trauma is appearing more visibly in the room, and you know how to work with it. You know how to allow for someone to show up as who they are without triggering more or making them feel like they want to leave or they don't feel like they are supposed to be in that situation, right? And so these are the cultural and power dynamics that are important. Even just the power of hierarchy and knowing where you sit on the ladder or on the org chart, knowing that you have a level of power that the other people don't have. You are going to determine my raise, my bonus, my next step in my career journey. So just because of that, I may be careful with talking to you. I may be careful with sharing my opinions. I may be careful, likely will be careful with giving you the feedback that you need. Right? And so we have to, as leaders, really figure out, what does this look like when I am out there in the world, and how do I kind of release or make the power dynamic smaller so that people feel safe. That is what we need to do. Make the power smaller so we feel safe. And so there's a lot of like co-creative kind of energy in that. So like, how are you co-creating everything so someone feels like they have a voice equally in everything that is happening? And so that's the fourth thing, which is like, what are the cultural and power dynamics that you need to navigate and you need to be aware of? Okay. And then the last thing is, trust is a daily practice. If you are an athlete, you practice every single day. If you like to exercise, you probably exercise every single day. If you like to read, if you like to save, if you like to run, if you like to, whatever your choice is, if you like to do something, you practice that every single day, right? There's not a day that goes by that you don't engage in whatever it is that you want. The same thing as trust. If you really want trust as something that you are going to cultivate on your team, you have to make it a daily practice. And so that may mean that you go first. You may have to show that vulnerability first, which means you're going to own your mistakes. You're going to give credit publicly, not just behind the scenes, but show me publicly that you really care about me. Show me in front of everybody that you acknowledge in the work that I did. Oh, that's good. Okay. And then modeling the behavior you want to see. So if you're defensive, there's probably somebody watching you and they may become a defensive leader as well. Versus if they see you curious and you're asking questions, you're like, oh my God, like I'm going to apologize in front of everybody, or I'm going to let people know exactly what's going on, or I am going to be the person that is really committed to changing this environment. So I sit on the PTA, and I had someone share with me that one of the staff members was, when they would get feedback, they would kind of get very defensive, and they would try to control through the type of like platforms they would give access to different people across in the school. And so that person modeled that they can't be trusted, because every time something was said that they didn't like, they actually reacted in a way to, how can I grab more control? How can I make it less where people are talking to one another and they come to me and tell me? And it didn't work. It didn't retain the teachers. It didn't retain students, and it just made it so like just a toxic environment. But that, if people see that and they believe they're walking into an environment like that, that domino effect is going to go to the children, it's going to go to the parents, and it's going to be like, no, I have to control by any means necessary, right? And so what are you role modeling? How are you showing your people a different way of leading out there in the world? It doesn't have to be the title. Your title means nothing if you can't influence and make a positive impact on your people. And so let's get consistent. Let's every single day we're doing something to build trust, whether that is weekly. I put this on my Instagram page. If I was, managing people right now and I was a manager, or maybe it was on my LinkedIn, I said every Monday I would make an announcement about the week prior. What worked well? Where did I get stuck, or where did I fail? And what am I going to do or try differently this week? I would share that every week, because if I share that every week, I'm showing my vulnerability. And look, I'm not talking about my feelings. I'm not talking about something that happened at home. I'm just sharing in relation to the work what I struggle with, what was phenomenal for me, because it gives insight to the other people on what you care about. Okay. And so that's how you want to start to build the trust practices here. And just remember that trust isn't situational, it's systemic. So there will be times when you'll mess up, but if there's a system or a practice of consistent repair, and there's always a willingness to try and to be different, then people start to notice that. And they're like, you know what? I can give this person some grace because they actually are trying to be different and do different. Okay. So that's all I got for you today. I'll repeat those 5 things. You can't just say you trust me and think that's enough. You need to do more by your actions. Your reaction sets the tone. So understanding how you're saying things, the impact you're having. Make the implicit explicit. Let's not hide stuff from people and make them feel like they should already know something that they actually don't know. And then we tell them that there will be consequences for not following that rules. No, we're not doing that anymore. Let's make the implicit explicit. And then understand the cultural and the power dynamics. If you are a people leader listening to this, you have a lot of automatic power, automatic advantage, just because you have the title of a people leader. So you're going to have to prove that you can be trusted. Full stop. And just reframe the proving, because I know a lot of us, especially women of color, we're like, I'm tired of proving myself. I'm tired of like constantly have to do more just for people to believe in me. I'm not talking about proving yourself in that context. What I'm talking about is really like, as a leader, how are you showing your people you care consistently? How are you taking actions that show that you desire their input consistently? Okay. So proving yourself for me is all about the consistency in a positive, impactful way. And then the last thing is trust is a daily practice. You have to do it day in and day out, day in and day out. There's a good book that I'm reading right now by Minda Harts called Talk to Me Nice. It is about the trust languages in the corporate environments. So go get that book. It'll teach you a lot about trust as well. Okay. So until next time, I hope you take this. I hope this was helpful for you, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening to Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. If today's episode moved you, sparked a new idea, or challenged your perspective, share with a friend and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. But before you go, take a moment to reflect. What does leadership beyond the title mean to you? How are you already living it? And where might you lean in just a little bit more? And if you're ready to step into leadership that's rooted in your values, amplifies your voice, and positions you as the go-to leader in your field, check the show notes to learn how we can work together. Keep showing up, keep leading, just as you are with leadership beyond the title.